So Mr. Bruemmer, please come to the microphone.
You.
And you're recognized for 3 minutes. Please go ahead, sir.
Chairs, members. My name is Nathan Bruemmer. I serve in Commissioner Nikki Fried's administration as our state's only statewide appointed LGBTQ official. As an advocate for our agency, a big part of what we do is inform and draw folks in to engage within the dozens of divisions and programs. This position was put in place because of an awareness of the unique needs in serving LGBTQ Floridians. And I'd like to draw both boards back to the role of government within what we legislate and what we do when we execute rules through that power. That there is procedure and process and a necessity for transparency and trust in that process. That is our charge and our duty, whether elected or appointed, paid or volunteer. Those purposes and goals must be honored. And that will affect service delivery when this process is done and executed, whatever decision you make. So how this process has progressed to date and where it goes forward is something I want to reflect back to you all. As an agency that is here to protect consumers, as you are as well. I also want to address this notion that I've heard consistently through commentary about protecting children. I've heard protect children and protect families, but really who has gotten on the mic and been allowed to speak is really coming in predominantly from one perspective. Please allow for all families to be heard from. There are many Floridians and many families who have felt silenced. Please allow them that opportunity. And there's another rhetoric I've heard about protecting ourselves from ourselves. In essence, limiting our liberties and our freedoms to make our healthcare decisions with our experts, with our medical providers, with our teams. And I'm very concerned by the decision today, the shift in course in this IRB research. Those that proposed it did so because the arguments have been that we don't have enough research. This change in reasoning now says we do. It's definitive, and what I'm hearing is more exclusion, removal of health care without even an option to propose we encourage research. That silencing of the information to inform our medical decisions is equally concerning. And I'd also encourage you all in moving forward, if you choose to reflect on the IRB research, that you do so with a very proactive support of mental health care services for our LGBT Floridians, because the outcome of this process will harm Floridians. Please put information and resources back with the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruemmer. We appreciate your public service. Next, we have State Representative Eskamani. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, chairs.
You have 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. First you said there wasn't enough research, and now you're saying you don't want to do any research, which again, further demonstrates why people are so mad in this space. And it pains me to say this, but this rule is not being drafted in the best interest of trans people or the trans people's lives in mind. We have trans people in this room, parents of trans kids in this room, and they will not be erased. And the fact that you can't even decide on a sunset rule once more demonstrates that you're not even willing to look at the impact of such a rule to potentially analyze its impact, to say it is causing harm. That's what a sunset exists for. This entire core process of even these meetings has been based upon the unfortunate culture wars that surrounds our society today, Twitter accounts and bots, and the evidence that Florida has assembled and the experts on this through the past meetings have been discredited, biased, compromised, or have made questionable statements, and that's me being nice about it. If you're going to do this 4 days before a major election, also be aware that the Republican Party of Florida is spamming the entire state with anti-queer mailers and advertising. We are not standing here today on the Friday before November 8th by chance. This is 2022, not the 1970s. I expect the legislature to be a political being, not the Board of Medicine. It is our job collectively as public servants to do no harm. And that is why people are here in opposition to your bill, and we've been here in opposition for every meeting since. Providers already have standards in place. So let me be clear, if your goal is to adopt rules that reflect the needs of those impacted, then I would recommend the standards of the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, which have established standards of care, which are based on the best available science and expert professional consensus, not a bunch of online trolls. And finally, I just want to add that laws that deny life-saving healthcare to transgender people are absolutely rooted in misinformation and contrary to extra medical standards that guide gender affirmation. You mentioned earlier that you want people who experience gender dysphoria to have care. This rule does not do that. So please join us in opposing this rule, opposing the politicization of healthcare. We really, really don't need this right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is anyone? Amy Rachel, you are next. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you to the Board of Medicine for this opportunity and for your time and attention. My name is Amy Rachel, and my pronouns are she and her. I was born and raised in the great state of Florida. I am a woman, a lifelong Christian, and I am proud to be transgender. I'm speaking to ask you to abide and uphold WPATH standards of care by not creating a separate set of standards just for the state of Florida. This is my third attempt to try to offer my public comment at one of your meetings, and I was horrified at the meeting 1 week ago to witness the skewed public comments where preference was given to non-residents who had been flown in to offer their stories of detransition, and comment was cut off shortly thereafter, with hardly any trans people or parents of trans youth given an opportunity. That said, I was struck by how many speakers evoked "do not harm" as the previous speaker had. And I want to speak to that. Harm is a relative thing. A bilateral mastectomy might be harmful to a woman, but it might be beneficial to a man with gynecomastia. Similarly, testosterone-driven puberty might be harmful for a cisgender girl, while healthy for a transgender boy. You cannot apply a unilateral notion of harm to this kind of medicine. From one modern version of the Hippocratic Oath, I will apply for the benefit of the sick all measures that are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism. Denying trans youth even the possibility of access to medical care is therapeutic nihilism. There are already protections against overtreatment in the existing WPATH standards of care. Are there risks and bad outcomes? Yeah, of course. All medicine has risks. Lack of medical treatment also has risks. The best numbers we have estimate those that begin medical transition, of those that begin medical transition, between 1% and 3% detransition. The numbers also tell us that the large majority of those who detransition do so due to external factors, lack of money, resources, and support, the pressures of social stigma upon transgender people, and the like. The highest estimates of those who detransition because they determined they were mistaken is about 1/3 of those who detransition. And here's the important part, which often goes unsaid. Most of those people do not express regret for their transition. Despite what the testimony at last week's Rules Committee would lead one to believe, regretful detransition is exceedingly rare, something most of the people in this audience last week knew, which is why there was so much outrage at the disproportionate time granted to those stories. The reality is that the vast majority of those who have access to medical transition have good short, medium, and long-term outcomes. But based on last week, you'd never know that. For the record, I share that outrage. I was a trans adolescent, and I had no information except that what I was feeling was wrong or impossible. So I felt isolated. I felt defective and broken. This led me to develop depression, anxiety, and PTSD. I went through a puberty counter to my gender, which has led to my experiencing debilitating gender dysphoria. The testosterone my body produced led to a disconnect with my body, as the testosterone irreversibly shaped my body in horrifying ways. I was harmed by lack of access to affirming medical care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I let you go a little bit long. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm available for questions if you have any.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Cecil Stone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the time. I'm a male assigned at birth. In other words, I identify as cisgender. I'm heterosexual, monogamous, white, and of the boomer generation, AKA I'm an old white guy. I'm the leader of a private club with 13,989 of your Florida constituents. Our club has well over 17,000 members, with membership in every state in the union and several countries. Because we run an inclusive space, we have a very heavy percentage of transgender and gender nonconforming folks. And as the leader of the club, I speak with almost every human that walks in the place. I say all of that to say I have probably spoken to more gender nonconforming folks than most of y'all. When someone realizes that their gender assigned at birth does not align with their true gender, it's not a relief. It's normally very shocking. We need to support these people. We need to not make care more difficult to find or even illegal for them to find. As medical professionals, you're required to do no harm. We all know this. Restricting care for trans people, including kids, will assuredly increase the suicide among this population, as is widely reported in nearly every targeted population survey that's ever been published. Out of the thousands of transgender folks and gender nonconforming folk that I've spoke with, I've only had one person that even considered detransitioning. To give you a little bit more knowledge, I literally travel the country talking about alternative sexualities and alternative lifestyles. So I've spoke with a lot of people. I noticed earlier that one of the speakers only spoke about a very select subset of transgender and nonconforming folk because you guys speak with the folk that come see you. You don't necessarily speak with the wide cross-section. I speak with a very broad section of transgender and gender nonconforming folk. Therefore, my experience is highly different than yours. The sample that shows up at political meetings obviously is a very narrow, small sample. I strongly urge you to not add this new language to your rules, as I truthfully believe, and the data shows, that this will increase child suicide and will do much more harm to Floridians than you can possibly imagine. I strongly suggest that you not only reject this rule, but that you add language that will help people who have realized that they are trans and also provide care for their parents to learn how to support their child through transition. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next is Megan Halloran.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Megan Halloran, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Florida and Vermont with a decade of clinical experience working with teens, and I've had the privilege of working with trans and non-binary youth and their guardians. My clinical experience tells me that when a teen is affirmed in their gender identity, they become happier. Their depression and anxiety caused by a life where they are not seen as who they are, and at many times told they are sick, their suicidal ideation diminishes and disappears, and they begin to thrive. I can also tell you from my personal experience, I've witnessed people I love transition in their teens, and they are happy now. Where there was once a suicidal, isolated, unresponsive teen, after validation and professional support, blooms a teen who is engaged, wants to live and participate in life. It is more than hope, it is actualization. I guess I came here to say, I don't understand. Why wouldn't you adhere to US and international standards of care? Why would you focus on a small percentage of detransitioners or professionals who do not have appropriate credentials? I think we're all begging you to do the right thing. Do no harm. Let parents of trans kids have the right to choose what is best for their child. If you don't, some of these teens will kill themselves because they could not access the care they need. I don't want to be a therapist, a family member, or frankly, a human who's watching these deaths that could have been prevented right here and now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sarah Parker, you are recognized.
Hi, my name is Sarah Parker. Oh, well, that's really loud. I'm bored and really loud. And if anyone knows me, they know that. My name is Sarah Parker, and I'm the president of Women's Voices Southwest Florida. I was the one that interrupted your meeting. I interrupted it because there were people that we know, because I went on their Twitter, I went on their Facebook page that were flown out of state, flown into state. They were on mini tours. They called themselves the Queen Grifter. They were flown out when I know that I and my friends and my family and my people that I'm standing with drove over 3 hours to be here. I am a voter. I am a damn constituent, okay? With that being said, you're not gonna listen to logic. I'm not a doctor, like who am I, right? I'm a student, I'm nothing. I'm a mother though. I'm a mother that had a child that was in a NICU for 52 days. And I sat with my child for every last one of those 52 days. And you know, when the doctors would come to me, I would have several different doctors come to me and tell me, we need to do this, we need to do that. I got to make that decision, wow, about my own child. And I want my child to be able to do, I want to be able to do that with my child again if they decided they are trans. You guys are talking about children and all of that when you all know about the abortion ban. So a 15-year-old can decide that they want to be trans, but they can be forced to have a child. They're that responsible. So again, like I know you guys aren't gonna listen to anything I have to say, which is why we didn't email you. We didn't waste our time. But I do have 1 minute and 37 seconds to read out all your contributions. Diamond, the board chairperson and radiation oncologist winner, Winter Park, Florida, contributed $2,000 to DeSantis' first campaign for governor 2018. Scott Ackerman, you wrote a check in $3,000 to DeSantis' campaign in 2018, roughly a year before he appointed you to board. It's kind of weird, right? You totally earned that. Robbie Chandra, you are the biggest grifter. I don't know which one you are, but I wish I was your friend because that was $25,000 you gave to friends of Ron DeSantis. Then you also gave another $3,000 to the governor's reelection campaign. DeSantis appointed you to the board last year. That's also adorable. Eleanor Pimentel, sorry again if I messed up your name. You only donated $50, then you wrote another 100. You might not be doing that good in your business, I understand. Medical practice owned by Hector Villa Jr., $20,000 again to Ron DeSantis, and then reappointed Villa to the board in 2019. What you're telling me is, first of all, I probably need to get into civil law. That's what you're telling me, first off. No, I don't need to go to family anymore. What you're telling me is that these seats are bought. You guys are bought. You were bought, you sold out Florida, you have stepped on your Hippocratic oath, and you know it, and we know it, and that's fine, Skeletor, you can keep smiling at me. That's completely fine. Everyone in this room knows it, and I promise you, your names, your emails, your phones, your emails, your phones, everything will be published, and you will not live the moment down. Every person that kills himself because of this, that I know, I will make sure their family contacts you. The blood is on their hands.
Next, we have Kimberly Cox.
My name is Kimberly, and I'm with the Women's Voices of Southwest Florida. I'm gathering my strength to speak here today by looking at a picture of my child, because I'm the proud parent of a non-binary teen. A teen who has a family history of clinical depression. But my child has a loving and caring, accepting environment to thrive in their home. But I know that it takes more than just parents to give children the ability to fully thrive. I, like all other parents, have to take certain things into consideration when choosing, schools and doctors and therapists for my children. But I must ensure that my child has extra precautions: a safe doctor, a safe school, a safe therapist. And by safe, I mean that their caregivers are in support of evidence-based practices for the non-binary and trans community. Cisgendered people get gender-affirming care all the time, and no one bats an eyelash at this. When I was 17, I wanted a boob job because I hadn't fully developed. Everybody said, "Oh, that's great. That's good. You should do that. Do what you should do to make you feel more confident in your body." Nobody batted an eyelash because I'm a cisgendered woman. The care and the choices that this care entails should be made between the patient and their families and their doctors. It is bias and bigotry that prevents the trans community from getting the same care and respect that their cis counterparts receive. Thanks to the president of my organization, Sarah, I now know that although my child to me is priceless, you all can put a value on their head. More importantly, to everybody out there that's watching and all of the people in this room, if you're a teen or an individual who is thinking about suicide because of this decision today, please know from this mother, you are loved, you are valued, and you are more than worthy. And the men and women that sit here and donate to people like Governor DeSantis and the Nazi regime that he has.
No.
Absolutely. You let them talk about the Bible, you will let me talk about this. Don't touch.
She's gone. Next.
I have 24 seconds left, and I will say that you could call 988 and talk to somebody. If you feel that your life is in danger, please make sure you reach out. Shame on all of you. Shame on
Next is Zoe Hawes. We're not going to have people calling one another Nazis in this room today. Zoe Hawes. Next we have Caitlin Danehy-Samitz.
All right, so my name is Caitlin Danehy-Samitz, Katie or Kate to any of my friends. I'm not a doctor, I'm an activist, and I'm here today as the vice president and founder of Women's Voices of Southwest Florida, as a proud queer woman, and as an ally to my trans and non-binary siblings here in the state of Florida and across the country. This potential ruling is nothing more than a targeted attack on transgender and non-binary youth. This is the rape of doctor-patient privilege. It is dangerous, regressive, purposefully hateful, and another strong step towards fascism for the state of Florida. Article 1, Section 23 of our Florida Constitution clearly and simply states, so everybody can understand it, that every natural person has the right to be let alone and free from government intrusion into their personal life. So regardless of y'all's personal feelings, or the people who have flown from out of state to read the same thing they read last week when they took time away from actual Floridians fighting for the rights of their friends, family, and selves, I just feel like I need to remind you, along with everybody else, that you took a Hippocratic oath, not a hypocritical oath. You say that your concern is the welfare of children. I heard a lot last week about genital mutilation, and I'm really surprised that I'm here speaking on gender-affirming care and having to defend gender-affirming care, genital mutilation. Why has circumcision never been brought up into this? I doubt any infant has ever said, hey, take my foreskin, I'm not gonna want that later. Aside from that, I have a minute and a half, I have a great time. Okay, cool. Transgender and non-binary youth are 2.5 times more likely to attempt suicide over other queer youth, who themselves are 4 times more likely when compared to their cisgender and heterosexual counterparts. Y'all need to realize and accept that if you pass this rule, the death of those children will be on your hands. I'll say it again. Y'all need to realize that if you pass this rule, the death of those children will be on your hands. And to the trans and non-binary youth that are watching here today, although Kimberly was cut off, if you are having suicidal thoughts, you can dial 988 and speak to somebody. You are not alone, okay? And to the children that have been watching and listening to their parents come up here and misgender them, shame. And you are loved, you are seen, you are respected. We are not done. We will continue to fight and to show up, speak up, stand up for your right to be who you are, because in the freest country in the world, that's exactly what you should be able to do. Keep your laws, keep your God, keep your God out of my gender, out of my uterus, out of everything. Your God is not my God.
Thank you very much. Next we have Shannon Keever.
Good afternoon. My name is Shannon Keever, and I'm a registered nurse in Florida, and I'm with Women's Voices of Southwest Florida. I'm in opposition to the rule. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, there's not one trans person on the board casting a vote on the future of thousands of trans youth in Florida. I mean, I don't want to assume, but
from what I've read about you guys. I haven't claimed that. However, many of you, as my dear friend Sarah pointed out, have contributed to the political campaigns of known trans antagonist Ron DeSantis. It's hard not to draw some conclusions from that, I think. I'm here to speak up for the rights of the trans community to own their path to heal the crippling pain of gender dysmorphia. I don't want anyone to transition and regret it. I think that listening to the stories of people who have detransitioned only is evidence that we need to further research and we need to improve. It's a way to listen and then work toward improvement. That's what we do in medicine, right? Isn't that what we do for our patients? We improve care. We don't just take it away. We don't revoke it. But to vote to detransition people who are already receiving gender-affirming treatment is terrible. We already know that it's not a secret. The Trevor Project has shown us that people who suffer from gender dysmorphia, if they are not in a supportive environment, they're not in an affirming environment, they are much more likely to commit suicide than children who are. So revoking their care is criminal, and it's redundant, but you'll have blood on your hands, and I hope you care about that. Why did you get into medicine? One question I heard earlier was, can minors with active mental health problems consent to transition? If you say no to that when we already know that gender dysmorphia in itself, because of their environment, causes depression and anxiety, you're going to shut out so many people, almost everybody who has it. I long for the day when we can live in a world when societal hangups aren't merged with personal medical decisions. And since we're going to quote the Bible, since that's apparently allowed by a physician when a discussion about science, let's talk about the Bible. If a man is caught in the act of raping a young woman who is not engaged, he must pay 50 pieces of silver to her father. Then he must marry the young woman because he violated her, and he will never be allowed to divorce her. I think that shows that we really should be making decisions based on science and evidence. You need to listen to the trans people here who are telling you that this worked for them. You do need to listen to the people who it didn't work for them. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Next, we have
Do the right
Amy
thing.
Atterbury. Seneca Bristol Dickinson, you're now recognized, and you're going to be our last speaker of the day.
Hello, my name is Seneca Bristol. I am the Vice President of the Youth Chapter for Women's Voices of Southwest Florida. I have friends who are transgender and non-binary, and it kills me to see that the state that we were born and raised in is taking their rights away. Congratulations, because of you, my fellow Floridians and friends will be unable to get the care they need to feel comfortable in their own skin. You have the power to protect them, not only as a doctor, but as an adult, and you choose not to. According to multiple studies, it has been shown that teenage depression and suicide rates went down after given access to gender-affirming care. I am cisgendered, and I can see that the rate of depression in teens will go up if you do this. I see the blood that will be spilt because of you. I see the pain and fear people will be struck with. I just don't get why you refuse to see it too. Maybe it's because you don't care, but we all care. And we won't stop until Floridians have the right to be who they are. And now I'm going to read something from my friend that they wrote, who is non-binary. I know there is no way to convince the board of my side. What is going through my head right now, my experience as a transgender ally is invalid in your eyes. You don't know what it's like to be in fear of coming out, to see the death tolls rise and rise for transgender youth, to see depression and anxiety take over the minds of those not accepted by anyone but their peers. There is one thing I can be certain of, though. We will never be silenced. The only words I can conclude this with is the words of Leah Alquan. I'm sorry for mispronouncing that. A 17-year-old transgender girl who committed suicide in 2014. The only way I will rest in peace is if one day transgender people aren't treated the way I was. They are treated like humans with valid feelings and human rights. Gender needs to be taught about in school. The earlier, the better. Sorry. They are treated like humans with valid feelings and human rights. Gender needs to be taught about in schools. The earlier, the better. My death needs to mean something. My death needs to be counted in the number of transgender people who commit suicide this year. I want someone to look at the number and say, that's effed up, and fix it. Fix society, please.
Thank you very
you.
much.